This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details. Fan.
Take me to Charch, I crawl through the fog and into light. Show me a gem on the wave where I got starters on mine. Facing Odell Beckham Jr., my God, help me get out alive. Take me to Charch, last time I had a shot was 2009. Jones drew for the win, he kneeled short of the line. Listen, Charch, I'm begging you, my God, you were saving my life. Take me to Charch, I crawl through the fog and into light. Show me a gem on the wave where I got starters on mine. Facing Odell Beckham Jr., my God, help me get out alive. Take me to Charch, last time I had a shot was 2009. Jones drew for the win, he kneeled short of the line. Listen, Charch, I'm
Welcome back. Final hour is upon us, 9 to noon. And we are efforting an appearance by Paul Charchian, of course, Paul Charchian, longtime co-host Friday Football Feast, and also of course longtime fantasy guru that he is, and I believe he joins us now from his bunker, and maybe we'll just talk to him about the Utah Mammoth the whole time, or maybe we get into some fantasy football. How you doing, Charch?
I've intended to watch Mammoth, but it hasn't happened yet. And by all accounts around here, they say they're a fun young team. They've got sparks where they look fantastic. To other times they look terrible. But there's a lot of Mammoth buzz in Utah. I can assure you, people think this is a good young team. I don't know enough hockey, and especially young up and coming players, to tell you for sure. But that seems to be the consensus here.
Well, before you get your season tickets, they're up here in St. Paul on Saturday. So watch that game, and that'll determine what your next steps are in your early Utah fandom. From a fantasy standpoint, I know that you're going to be a big part of the pregame festivities tonight. So we want you to maybe save some of your A bits, at least as it pertains from a Viking standpoint, maybe until later today. But I want to hit you with this and really appreciate your time. But Bo Nix, PA and I were having a conversation earlier this week. He does this hyper accurate or hyperbolic bit where he just asks some of the most, might you say, just some ridiculous questions, and we try to run our way through it and just find our opinions as they come. But Bo Nix had himself a game this last weekend, and 33 points in the fourth, and they put themselves in that spot where they needed that, and they needed the Giants to turn the ball over and drop a complete L on their own heads at Mile High. But when we're looking at QBs, Bo Nix, I think he had the highest scoring fantasy game of any quarterback all year. Where's your head at with the development, the progression of Bo Nix, and maybe from a fantasy standpoint, how reliable he can be on a weekly basis?
It's Bo Nix is what he did was remarkable. You mentioned highest scoring fantasy game of any quarterback, almost all in the fourth quarter. Giants, and by the way, anybody with survivor entries, we all needed the Giants to come up big there, and of course they didn't. That was frustrating. The decision that nobody's talking about in that game, Brian Daboll made a lot of dumb decisions. How about this one? He's up 19-0. He went for two.
Yeah.
Who does that? Who does that? You're taking point. You're up 19 points. You're like, no, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to erase some points from the board. Now, granted, Giants kicker wasn't good, but still, I'd say that was a head scratcher nobody's talking about in the aftermath here. So for Bo Nix, Nordo, here comes Dallas. Think about how implausibly hard it is to be this bad of a defense for Dallas. They are allowing the most of all of these categories: passing yards, passing touchdowns, opposing quarterback rushes, opposing quarterback rushing yards, and opposing quarterback rushing touchdowns. One defense dead last in all those categories.
No, it's absolutely brutal, and it's not getting any better at this stage of the season. You had something popping in my head, so I'm loving Bo Nix this weekend. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on CeeDee Lamb's return. Did that impact George Pickens at all? Maybe you have no opinion on it. I'm just thinking with CD, it was, they put 44 on the Commanders last week. Ferguson, he's kind of finding his way via the red zone more so than other areas, but 5 or 6 TDs thus far for the tight end. But CD rolls back in, immediately becomes the featured show. How much does that impact George Pickens, who is kind of getting some momentum there with Dak Prescott?
No, not a lot, honestly. I mean, Pickens still got a ton of usage in that game. He was on the field for 97% of the passing plays. Pickens was targeted on 20% of the plays. So, he's still, he remains involved. And really, it's a good 1-2 punch. We like the signing or the trade when that happened. CeeDee Lamb is an intermediary receiver. What Pickens does is he gives you these long downfield plays against smaller, diminutive cornerbacks. We know a little something about that here. That ends up giving him this big size and contested catch advantage. And I think they're going to keep using him that way. Pickens retains a lot of good value this week. And, this is going to be, now for these guys, Pickens is a lot trickier this week because he's got Denver.
Right.
He's going to go up against Riley Moss and Patrick Surtain. That is a really, really tricky spot, and both for Lamb and Pickens, but kind of have to start them because they're really good players, but it's a tough spot. Broncos have given up 1 touchdown to wide receivers this year. That's it.
Oof. Well, maybe stay away if you have the choice. Maybe go a different route. Hey, it pains me to talk about division rivals in a positive light. The Chicago Bears have won 4 in a row, and Ben Johnson, new head coach, still, he tore down Caleb Williams to the studs, as he put it, over the summer, and he's rebuilding this whole thing. Well, if they do it the way Ben Johnson wants to do it, that means they're going to do it like we saw him do it in Detroit, which means they're going to run the hell out of the ball. They went for 200 plus on the Saints, and Saints are an awful team, so they have, and it's a fair game to do it at home. But is this tandem of not just DeAndre Swift, who found his legs, but now this Kyle Monangai? The name's fun to say. Is it fun to start Mr. Monangai and or Swift in fantasy leagues moving forward with Ben Johnson's offense?
Yeah, I think he's found the Bears version of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Now, I'll note that Swift has got a groin injury at the moment, which means Kyle Monangai might be even more valuable coming into this game. But last week, man, it really did look like Gibbs and Montgomery, well, the way they were using Swift and Monangai being the David Montgomery. He's the hammer. He is a big kid. He's more of a straight-ahead runner. He was breaking tackles. He had 15 touches last week. That is a huge uptick for Kyle Monangai from what we had seen in the past. He posted a career-high 39% rush share in that game. And granted, it was the Saints. They got ahead early, and then it was a huge regression for Spencer Rattler, who had played actually pretty good ball most of the season, and he was just terrible last week. So, it kind of everything just sort of lined up for maybe the running game here, but you could see a lot of shades of the Lions with Ben Johnson and those Bears last week, and I think they're going to be a lot of games where they're going to try to keep that same sort of approach going here. So Kyle Monangai already picked up in most fantasy leagues, but if not yours, be sure to go get him. Yeah, and they're against the Ravens this week. I don't know what Lamar's status is. I was kind of seeing some bits leading to the idea that he could return. I think he was limited in practice, so that bears mentioning and watching as you get into the weekend. But that Ravens defense, man, I mean, if it feels like if you can find a big timer on any team facing the Ravens right now, you just start them without even thinking twice, right? Well, mostly yes, but I'll say this. The reason the Ravens were basically the worst defense in the league through up until this point was because they had so many injured players, and especially in their secondary. But coming out of the bye, they're getting all of the secondaries coming back, and they will be missing one key player. Nnamdi Madubuike is still out for their defense, so I think you're going to be able to run on the Ravens a little bit, but this is a defense that's going to get better. And unfortunately for the Vikings, we've got the Ravens week 11, week 10. I think they're going to be fully healthy and ready to roll at that stage, and week 10 against the Vikings. So I think it feels like a return to health here makes the Ravens back to being the dangerous team that nobody wanted to face. Paul Charchian joining us from his nuke-proof bunker in Utah. I saw this. You kind of said nobody would bother nuking southern Utah. What's the point? No, that's a very good point. It's picturesque. We want to maintain the beauty of southern Utah.
I saw this. You always put like some notes and some bullets together, and this just kind of amused me. Not that I have anything against them. I just want the Saints to lose every game ever, and it's fun watching them falter. It's fun watching Spencer Rattler regress, as you mentioned. Is Alvin Kamara, is he, as you might put him, is he cooked right now, Charch, from a fantasy standpoint?
Well, I'm not pounding nails into his coffin, but he does not look like the same guy. Let me give you some stats on Alvin Kamara to back it up, and you can just use eye test. I mean, he doesn't look the same. Yeah. He hasn't topped 70 rushing yards this year. He hasn't scored since week 1. Over the past 5 weeks, Kamara barely averaging 3 yards per carry. He ranks 29th in yards after contact. And also disappointing for one of the great dual threat runners.
Yep.
He's averaging 18 receiving yards per game this year. That's it. So, I'm not saying Alvin Kamara is never going to have another good game. And his upcoming schedule for like the next month is really hard too. But I don't like what I'm seeing. Now, Kendre Miller was the backup, but just tore his ACL. So he's out. The fantasy pivot here behind Kamara, especially if he continues to languish this much and have this many struggles, it's Devin Neal, the Kansas rookie, who he's got amazing footwork. He's got these little choppy steps that he takes. He makes people miss. He can catch. Devin Neal, if you're in a big enough league, if Kamara either continues to struggle, gets hurt at age 30, or is a trade, he says he doesn't want to be traded, but that doesn't mean he won't be traded. If you want, if the Saints decide to trade him at the deadline, which is coming up soon, any of those things happen, Devin Neal would suddenly be thrust into a starter's role for the Saints.
Hey, similarly, we saw McCaffrey having some issues, specifically running the ball and with all those injuries, but then he just blew up against the Falcons. I mean, could you see a point where, the Spencer Rattler thing has an expiration date, certainly, but doesn't it seem just like instinctive that if you have somebody like Alvin Kamara on your team and you're trying to just get some level of competency out of the QB spot, that'd be your guy with 6-7 targets within a game. It didn't happen, but we did see McCaffrey kind of rise from the depths and just take over that game the other night against the Falcons.
Yeah, 200 yards total. And his first really good rushing game of the whole year. And Christian McCaffrey hadn't topped 57 yards in any game prior to the Falcons game. And the Falcons are a good defense. It was a Herculean effort by him and his offensive line to get going like that. I think the big question on Christian McCaffrey, do you trade him right now? Right. So here he is.
Okay.
One of the oldest, the history of soft tissue injuries, one of the oldest starting running backs in the league. He's the heaviest used running back in the league by a mile. So it's not like Kyle Shanahan is like easing him in. No, he's got the most touches of any running back in the league. And you just wonder, as good as he's been through the air, especially where he's just been a dynamo and just powering teams with PPR points, if the smart thing to do isn't to sell high on Christian McCaffrey now while there's no concern of injury, just knowing odds are one's coming at some point, and you can kind of name your price on Christian McCaffrey right now. I don't know. I mean, it'd be a super ballsy move. I mean, you drafted him knowing that there was a lot of risk involved. You've gotten 7 great games out of him. Maybe, Nordo, Christian McCaffrey, this is the time to move him. It'd be ballsy, but you could do it.
Hey, I got this text in, and I actually have him on one of my teams, and he's kind of annoying me, and I keep waiting around for this thing to work. But the late round draft pick guy from the Commanders, Krosky Merritt, and I think Jaden Daniels might be out this game. I mean, is he ever just going to find his way to actually, and as the text points, take advantage of his carries? They keep giving him all these opportunities, whether it's fumbles or it's just inefficiency in the run. Like, I need a blow-up game. And at least Brant texting in, we need a blow-up game from Krosky Merritt. Like, our lives depend on it.
I do too. I've got him in a couple of guillotine leagues. I could really use Krosky Merritt for the big game. I don't know that one's coming, unfortunately, against the Chiefs' run defense that had struggled earlier in the year, but has gotten a lot better. It's the Monday night game. And the Chiefs, my worry here is Patrick Mahomes is going to go off on this defense that's really struggling. The Washington defense has looked terrible. They've got a couple of key injuries that have made things worse for them. And here comes Rashee Rice, who looks great. Xavier Worthy looks great. Travis Kelce and all the other weapons. My worry for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is game script is going to flip on him. Marcus Mariota is going to be the starting quarterback.
Yep.
They're just not going to be able to give Krosky-Merritt more than like a dozen carries. And he's, I don't know that he can be special on those against a really good run defense. So I don't like this matchup, I'm afraid. And I'm not very optimistic for a big game for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, sadly.
All right, one more guy, since everyone cares about my fantasy team. I actually do have Nico Collins on one of my squads, and I believe he got a concussion. Yeah. So he's probably not going to be in the mix. I just kind of a combination of fantasy and reality. First of all, I think they still have the two rookies, Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, Xavier Hutchinson in the mix, but Christian Kirk, I believe, is hurt. Like, just seeing CJ Stroud year 3 now, it hasn't been good. The team's losing. His main target, kind of that conversation with Stroud, just need, whether it was Tank Dell and all those injuries, Stephon Diggs with the ACL a year ago, Nico, I think, hurt his hammy or something a year ago. It's just kind of disastrous with the Texans offense right now, where DeMeco Ryans is asking, being asked about the coordinator's future and the job and all that. Like, where am I at if I'm a Nico Collins guy and I'm just kind of sifting through the ashes here?
We've talked a lot about some of the bad teams in this league. Like, the Jets are really bad. The Dolphins are really bad.
Yeah.
Tennessee's really bad. Las Vegas, really bad. Houston might be in this conversation. Now, their defense is good, and their defense is going to win a few games. This offense is terrible, and most of the blame falls on the offensive line. They're 29th in pass block win rate. They're 28th in run block win rate. And here's the thing that's so stupid about this. Houston GM Nick Caserio gets a historic rookie season from CJ Stroud, and then for 2 seasons doesn't do anything to protect him. I mean, the first thing you should do when you get a franchise quarterback is you should build the offensive line around that kid at the expense of everything else. And again, to the credit, they've got a good defense. But, you're trading away Laramie Tunsil, who wasn't great and he was overpaid, but at least he was competent. This whole offensive line is just terrible. Yeah. They can't get anything going. Nick Chubb, Woody Marks, they rank dead last in yards after contact as a team. You mentioned Christian Kirk, constantly hurt. Why they traded for him is a huge question mark. And now Nico Collins has got a concussion. This Houston team has got some stink of death on them, and I don't know that they're going to be winning many games the rest of the way out.
Hey, thanks for everything that you do. Can't wait to hear you on the pregame tonight. Mix in the purple, of course, at SoFi, and we'll chat with you again next week, all right?
Sounds good. Talk to you later.
Hey, thank you. That's Paul Charchian at Paul Charchian via X. He's taken us to Charch with some fantasy opinions. Again, Vikings heavy conversation with Charch as he joins the Vikings pregame show, which is actually going to be kind of cool here as Mike Mussman. He's going to be doing the pregame show at Buffalo Wild Wings Savage tonight. It's an evening feast at B-Dub Savage starting at 5 p.m., but Charch is going to be a big part of that. He's going to offer up, some big spot Vikings opinions. Carson in the mix. So how does that what does that matter to Justin Jefferson? We've seen that connection. How about Jordan Addison? How about some accurate passes so you find Addison in the end zone instead of having to make circus catches on the sideline? All part of fantasy meeting reality as the Purple hope to beat the Chargers and improve to 4-3. And that's where we'll start again next with Alec Lewis of The Athletic joining us from Los Angeles. It's a Vikings game day on the Fan with a cash thing right in the mix as well, right, Brett?
That's right, the cash thing. The Fan and 2 men in a junk truck want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks, the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com, keyword deposit, KFAN.com, keyword deposit.
A little hot chocolate on a chilly Thursday morning. It's Nordo in for PA. You heard from PA during the 10 a.m. hour. Jumped out to L.A. to chat with him, get his thoughts on things. Of course, Ben Lieber in the mix last hour as well. But now via The Athletic, no Friday feast at a B-Dubs, at least in the morning this week. But we wanted to get his opinions on tonight's festivities. Vikings at the Chargers at SoFi. Alec Lewis at Alec_Lewis via X writes for The Athletic. What's up, brother?
I'm sitting on the patio outside under the sun, 70 degrees, and now probably making everybody jealous, and I apologize.
No, that sounds perfect. I appreciate you giving me time, working through the time change and everything associated. Just didn't want to. I know it's going to be a long day for you, so I didn't want to get you up too early. News kind of shocking me yesterday as we were texting, trying to find some time when you could join. The Christian Darrisaw, suddenly there's like some knee pain and such after going the distance against the Eagles, and it's a short week. And now the left tackle's questionable. What's up with that?
Yeah, it's been a topsy-turvy ride for Christian Darrisaw really in his return throughout this entire year. And you know that. Folks listening to this know that. But, yeah, that was unexpected for me. I will say we were in the locker room Tuesday for an access period, and Christian came in. There were a couple reporters who went up to him to talk, I think just to like preview the game. And then he's like, I got to go get treatment. Usually he's not one not to speak. So it was kind of I just thought it was interesting. And then obviously you see that, surface yesterday, but I mean, similar to Brian O'Neill before, in the lead up to tonight's game. And I really, from what it sounds like, I mean, I'll be there early, and these two guys probably be on the field working out and see. I think at that point the designation will be made. But yeah, it's the idea of potentially transitioning from Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill to Justin School and Walter Rouse in a game that is obviously necessary tonight is one that should give you concern, gives me concern, and would obviously give people internally concern as well.
So for those of us that we don't go to the practices, we aren't reporting on the team, what can they do because you think about it changing midstream, right? Like if you didn't know, we saw it earlier this year and just how discombobulated things get when you lose a Brian O'Neill in the game, when Ryan Kelly gets a concussion in the game and you're throwing guys into spots after practicing at a completely different one all week, how things can get weird in a walkthrough kind of a let's recover mostly on a short week into a Thursday night game. Like, how much can they really work with this? And, whether it's Juergens or it's Brandel at center, if it's Juergens, do you move Brandel into a spot versus a Walter Rouse? Like, how much can you really prepare and play around with these things when you get hit with tenuous injury situations so close to a game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the nature of how this season has gone, if anything, Kevin O'Connell and the staff, if they've learned anything, not that they already hadn't learned it, but you just kind of have to be ready to adapt in any capacity. And that's both like during this week, which is a short week anyway. I mean, there was most of the practice this week was much lighter. Obviously, there were a couple walkthroughs on Tuesday. And so you're already dealing with lack of on-field reps and time. And then, depending on what they navigate tonight, specifically in game, I mean, it's just incumbent upon Kevin O'Connell and this staff to be able to adapt. And I think so much of this, leads you to think that, like, they better enter this game tonight against this Chargers defense with a ton of quick game. And one of the kind of advantageous spots against this defense is they play a lot of off coverage. Their cornerbacks give you a lot of space. And so the idea of Carson, I mean, one of the things that he has effectively done as the quarterback is when there has been space on a guy like Jordan Addison, he will just take that 8-yard quick out or 10-yard quick out and move the chains. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that is a lot of the scheme tonight, just to counteract whatever, configurations of the offensive line you're going to see. And then that would lead you to kind of, matriculate the ball up the field, find yourself in the red zone and make magic happen in the red zone in a way that they were not able to last Sunday, obviously.
If you had to bet $100 of your athletic earned cash, would you put it on Aaron Jones playing tonight or Aaron Jones not playing tonight as his practice window opened up?
Was the FBI director listening?
That's
because
it
seems like something I got to be mindful of.
I
right
apologize.
Now.
I put you in a bad spot. I'm sorry.
Right. Thank you. But I would say if I had to bet it, I would bet that he is in. I mean, it's also one of those, sneaky, under the radar, me being a nerd type aspects of this game. But CJ Ham is not playing, and CJ Ham has played the last 2 games and has played a big role in pass protection, specifically on third down. And so, Jordan Mason has not been phenomenal in pass protection. Zay Scott is also limited or is questionable, and you don't really trust him a ton in pass protection. So you kind of feel like Aaron Jones is necessary for that spot. And I say that in tandem with then you're putting him back there to take hits, coming directly off of this hamstring injury. So to go back to the initial question, if I had to place the wager, I'd say that he is in. But I just bring up the pass protection because I'm mindful of it tonight against a team that when they blitz, they are effective. I mean, they run a lot of simulated pressures. They'll bring the off-ball linebacker and drop a player from the defensive line, and that's what got Carson Wentz last week against Philly. And so you just got to be, as much as this Chargers defense has seemed in disarray a little bit, they can get you, they can trap you. So you really have to be dialed on a snap-in basis.
Last week, Alec, it was Operation Stop Saquon, and they did that. 2.4 a carry, I think less, maybe 50-ish yards as a team, the Eagles, a week ago. So we dig that. But tonight we're going against a team that I'm not even familiar with their running backs, to be honest with you, whether it's Vidal and there's another cat they might be elevating, Nyheim Hines, more of a return special teams guy, former Colt, and maybe he's been somewhere else, Titan maybe as well. But all the same to that end, this team and Justin Herbert, they love to stretch the field. In some ways, the way that the Eagles got us with Jalen Hurts and buying himself extra time and finding downfield opportunities. What do we think about on a short week, Flores kind of looking back at that Eagles tape and all right, the guy that leads the league in passing yards is up next. I can't let this happen 2 games in a row. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, this game to me is, can you apply pressure to Justin Herbert and can you contain him? And if you can do those 2 things, you give yourself the best chance. Now, Herbert is fascinating. There are a lot of people who it's he can't win the big game. He's so overrated. He's like the film nerd that he's the quarterback the film nerds love. All I can tell you is I watched this Colts game that they played last week, and the game script was a disaster for the Chargers. I mean, they trailed early, and it just became a Herbert fest. And he was doing some absurd things. I mean, unbelievable evading of pass rushers, scrambling out of the pocket, making throws downfield, opposite hash throws that you just very few guys have the velocity in their arm to even attempt. So I mean, for me, there's nothing about this guy that you can take lightly. And the most underrated aspect of his play is his strength in the pocket. If you're Dallas Turner, if you're Jonathan Grenard, and you're beating the Chargers tackles tonight, it is not an easy task to then corral Justin Herbert in the pocket. And so, I mean, that to me is really where this game's gonna lie, and probably where this game will hinge is can they get to Justin Herbert, and then can they contain him? Because if you don't get to him, he has the processing ability to pick you apart. And they have receivers like Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey who will find open spaces in the zone coverages that the Vikings run. And if you do get to him and he does evade, we saw last week what can happen down the field.
Yeah, and you did it a day or 2 ago, I believe. You kind of wrote a piece on Dallas Turner. And I was a little hard on Dallas after the Eagles game because I just felt like there were at least a handful of opportunities, and Lane Johnson's high end, I get it. But it just felt like there was that initial push, the initial attempt, and then he was just kind of done for that play. And he was completely locked out by Lane Johnson. So via your piece and just kind of via your prep for this game, am I being too hard on Dallas when I just see him being such a non-factor for so much of these games? Or does he potentially fare a little bit better tonight, whether or not the Joe Alts or the Trey Pipkins of the world play against these Chargers?
Yeah, he definitely fares better tonight because Lane Johnson is
he's massive.
A Hall of Fame player. But I mean, the Dallas Turner conversation is really this. Like, he's been solid. He's set the edge when he's had to set the edge for the most part, especially of late, more recently than the Falcons game early in the year. He's dropped into coverage and not looked absolutely lost. He's, long-armed the tackle kind of back into the pocket and muddied it up a little bit. But, the conversation, and Dallas is young, and he didn't choose where he was picked, but just the fact and how he was picked with the amount of draft capital. But the fact of the matter is, when you trade the accumulation of draft capital for a guy like they did for Dallas Turner, it just doesn't feel like solid setting the edge and all of that is enough. And the other aspect is, I've probably heard you talk about it. I've heard a lot of people. It's like, man, we need Van Ginkel back. If there is that much of a feeling and that much of a seemingly absence when Dallas Turner is now acquiring most of the snaps, for me, that is telling. And again, it's not to put any cap on what he's ultimately going to be as a player, but this team needs pass rush right now because on the interior, while Jonathan Allen is giving you a little bit and Jalen Redmond's giving you some and Levi Drake a little bit, you're just not getting much from Javon Hargrave, and opposing offenses are chipping Jonathan Grenard because they know he is an immense factor. So you just need Dallas Turner, to apply pressure. And it really feels like watching the film, Nordo, he's really got one tool in his tool belt, and it is just to use his really long arms and his athleticism to try to push the tackle back. There are very, especially in the Eagles game, there are very few, sequences on tape where you're seeing any combinations from a pass rush perspective off that. And that it's just, again, it's youth, it's development and all that. But at some point when you're picked with the amount of draft, with the capital that they traded to acquire him, it just doesn't really feel like enough, especially when two guys were picked behind them in Jared Verse and Quinyon Mitchell, who were immediate studs. Yeah,
how about Jared Verse? I saw something. He might have more pressures on the quarterback in 2025 than half of our defensive front. It's just what he's doing from last season and what he's doing now is incredible. Now, to Keenan Allen, you mentioned him with Ladd McConkey. Is he going to have another career type game against us tonight like he did 2 years ago? I think he was throwing touchdowns. He had a game against us when he was with the Bears and that little stint before returning to LA and the Bolts. Stopping Keenan Allen. You mentioned Ladd. That Quentin Johnston, they've figured out how to get loose with him a little bit. I don't want to say fear into the game. I'm waiting for the shoe to drop on one of those big moments by their weapons.
Well, what about the rookie tight end, Rondé Gadsden the second? This fifth-round pick from Syracuse has emerged, and if you're playing fantasy and you haven't heard this guy, then you haven't been checking your waiver wire quick enough. This guy had multiple explosive catches last week against the Colts, and this combination of weapons, entering the season, it did feel, if you monitor the league, some of the conversations the Chargers need more weapons, and they have a ton at their disposal. But Keenan Allen, he's just crafty, and he's going to find open space. And the Vikings, the way this defense plays, while it can be menacing, and yes, they disguise a ton, typically, if there is enough time, there is space to be found. And so, you asked the question, is he in for another big game? I would say yes, unless they prove to me that they have, an ability to limit a guy like him. And if you give him free access off the line of scrimmage, and Justin Herbert can process it and play quick game the way that he's shown capability of for a long time, then I don't know why you wouldn't just be 7-yard chunks to Keenan Allen. That's where, I said it earlier with the Vikings offense, but this does feel to me like it could end up being just a red zone game and a turnover game. And that's where this Vikings defense is built with the idea that they would generate takeaways, and they have not done that at a level remotely close to where they want to, not close to last year, and you feel that, and it makes kind of everything more difficult.
Time for one or two more here. Alec Lewis of The Athletic. I got a text message. Ryan in Michigan, he quotes you. He is in Dallas Turner. He dropped into coverage and didn't look completely lost. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2025 Minnesota Vikings.
No, I mean, and I don't say that like that's funny. And Ryan, it's astute. But I don't say that. I mean, he's an edge rusher who, in college, he's mostly a pass rusher. So, and he did have the interception last year in Seattle. So he's shown an ability to do that. The kind of the issue is like this defense in a lot of ways relied heavily on Andrew Van Ginkel to play cleanup on a lot of things and to communicate at the line of scrimmage from a pass rush plan perspective. And so now you're throwing in a guy in Dallas Turner who just doesn't, from an aptitude standpoint, doesn't have the experience of an Andrew Van Ginkel. And I think you feel that in both phases against the run and the pass. But it's a good, I mean, I didn't mean it like that. But
no, it's all good.
It is what it is.
We got to have fun with this thing, man. It's a weird ass 3-3 team, and I'll ask you this: the ups and downs of this whole thing. Any confidence in the idea that Carson finds a little bit more accuracy in this one? Guys were open, and explosives were potentially missed. We have inexplicable intentional grounding penalties, all of those things. But just in the end, at a base level, Carson kind of leveling out 4 days after what we saw against Philly.
I mean, not particularly. I just kind of feel like, for one thing, and I want to make this abundantly clear, and I've written this and I've said it on my own podcast, but this shoulder injury to his non-throwing shoulder that he is dealing with, I'm not sure how many guys in the league would play through what he's playing through. And so part of it is he's compromised. So would I expect him, if he was healthy, I think I'd have more reason, but that's just the nature of it. Right. And then Carson Wentz, and I said this with you guys last Friday on the Friday Football Feast, when he has a spot on the field, when he catches the snap and his eyes go to a certain spot of the field, if he's throwing right then it usually can be pretty fine. But if those eyes have to move or shift and he has to, there was the negative 6-yard screen pass that he threw backwards out of bounds, that was because his eyes were to the right, then he had to go all the way back to the left, and it just unraveled. And so, the one thing I will say is, again, this Chargers defense gives the receivers, or they have this season, a lot of space off the line of scrimmage, and the Chargers' eye discipline from a second level, third level has not been great. So those things you would hope would help the Vikings passing game. For me, more than anything, and we didn't even talk about it, this is a run the football game, especially if you have the two tackles. The Chargers, their run defense is 30th in success rate. And part of the reason their eye discipline has been bad is because they're so conscious of stopping the run. And this Vikings offense, for the third straight offseason, they talked about prioritizing the run game. They're running it at a 40% clip, which is a lower rate than last season when they had Sam Darnold as their quarterback. So that's really where my mind begins with this game. And we got to it last, I guess.
No, I love that. They're giving up $140 on the ground a game over their last five per carry, 5.1 per carry in over the totality of the season. But the coach has to commit to it. And, the jury's still out on that. Thank you for giving me some time on a game day morning, my friend. Looking forward to following your stuff via X later tonight and seeing how you sum this whole thing up. Hopefully we get the W, my friend.
Indeed. Thank you, Nordo. We'll miss you. Look, Monticello captured the level of energy that I needed at the time. And so I'll be missing that. But no, thanks for having me. Appreciate it as always. And to the folks listening, enjoy the game. It's one they need for sure. Absolutely.
Thanks, man. That's Alec Lewis at Alec_Lewis via X, covers the Vikings for The Athletic. Final segment is next. All right, Vikings are going to win 23-17 tonight, so we'll be all good. We'll improve to 4-3, and then you can call in Fan Line and we can celebrate a little bit and talk about J.J. McCarthy potentially playing next week. Thanks to Grim opening the show on the Gophers, going for that pig on Saturday. PA, Lieber, and Alec joining from L.A. Paul Charchi in the fantasy bid, and, of course, Brett for producing. If you want to have some fun tonight, by the way, you have kind of a double feature event. Southsiders, go to Buffalo Wild Wings Savage because Muss is hosting a Vikings pregame feast at Buffalo Wild Wings and Savage. That starts at 5 p.m. And if you're hanging out around downtown or plan on going downtown, Guardsy is at Gray's Food Hall by Travail. It's, I believe, behind Target Field. What do I mean? I believe I was there a couple of weeks ago for the Cleveland game, and it's a sweet spot. They're going to have cool specials and a watch party as it is at Gray's Food Hall downtown at 7 p.m. with Guardsy. Big montage coming up next, right, Brett? Big
Yes,
montage
sir.
for the program, which is around the corner. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Go Vikes. Grum is next on The Fan.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.